They said she was a saint. They said her body never decayed. But no one said why she was still smiling in the village of Marcellone, buried deep in the French countryside. There's a convent with no name. Locals avoid it. Travelers rarely notice it. Didn't believe in saints. The smile has widened. We require confirmation. Discreetly, when she got the letter from the Vatican requesting her presence in Marcellone, she assumed it was a clerical error. The letter was marked confidential and stamped with the papal seal. Its contents were chilling in their formality. Mist clung to the windows. The nuns didn't speak when they led her to the chapel, not even Sister Madeleine, the elderly abbess who only nodded once and shuffled away. The coffin sat in the center of the chapel like a museum piece. Gold trim, silk lining, perhaps wax. And just beneath the surface, on the glass where Sister Agnes's eyes would have been, were tiny smudges. Maybe embalming, or some freak accident of preservation. But as she bent closer, her breath fogging the glass, she saw it. And the body, no, the thing of Sister Agnes. It was a young novice. But last year, the smile grew. No one wanted to admit it. But it's bigger now. Pale. Wide-eyed. Maybe 17. But inside a glass coffin, sealed in a gilded chapel, lies the body of Sister Agnes Valois, a 19th century nun declared incorruptible by the church after her death in 1853. Her skin never rotted, her cheeks stayed flushed, and worst of all, she smiled, not in peace, not in grace, but like someone hiding something. Something in her stomach twisted. The room grew colder. Dr. Elodie Marchand, a 34-year-old forensic anthropologist from Paris, a case of spiritual preservation is showing anomalies. Elodie thought it was a joke. It wasn't. She arrived at the convent on a grey, wet morning. She was perfect. No decomposition. Skin pale but soft looking. Lips pink. Eyes shut. But the smile. It curled wide. Too wide. The corners of her mouth strained toward her ears. Her teeth were impossibly white, and one corner of her lip seemed to be lifting more than the other, as if mid-thought. Mid-joke, Elodie leaned in. She's been like this since she died, whispered a voice. Elodie turned. She never decayed, the girl said. Elodie studied the mouth again. She was a scientist, and science demanded reason. A hairline crack running down the inside of the glass, from the nose outward. Fingerprints. Elodie pulled back. That night, she stayed in the convent guest room. The walls were stone. The crucifix above the bed had no Jesus on it, just nails and a faint brown stain. Sleep didn't come easy. Around 3:14 a.m., a soft knock tapped on her door. Knock. She opened it. No one. The hallway was empty, cold, lit only by a single flickering bulb. She stepped out, silence. Then, somewhere below, in the chapel, a whisper. Elodie. She spun. Nothing. Then, the sound of a distant door creaking open. She should have gone back to sleep, but she didn't. Elodie crept barefoot down the winding stone stairs. The air smelled of old incense and something metallic. When she reached the chapel, the air was icy. The coffin was open. The glass lid lay beside it, undamaged. Sister Agnes was still inside. Elodie screamed. In the dark, she heard soft dragging like silk moving over stone. She ran, but now, her eyes were open, secretly taken with her phone. It showed Sister Agnes's face with her eyes open and her mouth twisted wider than humanly possible. When Elodie examined it later in her Paris lab, her assistant gasped wide, and her smile was full, all teeth. The chapel lights snapped off. By morning, the coffin was sealed again. Sister Agnes's eyes were closed. The nuns said nothing. Elodie demanded answers. Sister Madeleine only said, "She must be watched. Every night. Never leave her alone." Elodie left that day, but she took something with her, a photo. The eyes. "They're looking at you?" "I know," Elodie said. "No," the assistant replied, pale. "I mean, they're following me." Elodie dismissed it. But that night, her phone turned on by itself, and the photo was gone, replaced by a new one. Same body, same smile. But now the nun's hand was raised, pointing right at Elodie. Elodie didn't sleep for 3 nights. The photo of Sister Agnes, the one with a hand raised, pointing, vanished from her phone the next day. She tried to show her assistant that there was nothing. Not in the gallery, not in the cloud, not even in the cache. Gone. But something had taken its place. A voice message. She never recorded one, never received it, and yet there it was, 1 minute and 33 seconds of hissing static, and beneath it, almost quiet to hear, a whisper. She played it 20 times, slowed it down, cleaned it through software. At 0:53, the whisper sharpened. Elodie, open your mouth. She dropped the phone. The convent tried to reach her that morning. A letter, handwritten, no return address. We can no longer care for her. The glass cracked again. The smile does not stop. The novices are frightened. Please return. Her lips peeled back into that horrible grin, red, raw. Bleeding at the corners, Elodie tried to run, but her legs wouldn't move. Agnes's eyes rolled open, revealing nothing but empty black. Before we closed the chapel forever, Elodie knew she should have deleted everything, told the Vatican she was done. But something inside her refused. Curiosity? Guilt? Or was it something else? That night, she had the dream again. She was standing in the convent chapel. The coffin was gone. Sister Agnes was standing behind the altar, her habit hanging loosely off her stiff frame. And then Agnes opened her mouth and screamed, but no sound came out. Instead, a dozen hands burst from her throat, grasping, pulling, reaching for Elodie. She woke up vomiting, and this time, there was blood. At 3:33 a.m., one of the novices saw her. The following evening, she got a call. No sound. The gates were open, and as she walked, every door she passed slowly creaked open behind her. Not a number she recognized. She hesitated, then answered. Elodie Marchand. The voice was papery, old. Yes, this is Sister Madeleine. There's been an incident. Her skin stretched to tight, as if she were laughing against her own will. The abbess's voice shook. Please, we've locked the chapel. But the smile is stretching. Her lips are cracking. Her teeth, they're wrong. She was seen walking. What, in the chapel? That's impossible, Elodie muttered. We need you to come. Elodie took the next train south. When she arrived, the convent looked different. No lights in the windows. She stepped through. But suddenly she was outside, on the stone path, the cold wind cutting across her skin. Inside, the halls were darker than before. The crucifixes had all been turned upside down. Red wax from votive candles dripped like blood. The chapel was colder than ice. Candles flickered even though no one had lit them. And there, in the coffin, was Agnes. Her smile had grown. The corners of her mouth now nearly reached her ears. Her jawbone looked unhinged. Elodie reached for the glass lid. Crack! A fresh fracture ran across it, from one side to the other like a lightning bolt. Suddenly, behind her, a sound. Shuffling. She spun. Burned sage. Slept with the lights on. No one. Then the whisper again. This time clearer. Elodie, smile for me. She ran. She didn't remember leaving the chapel. And in her hand, she was holding something. A tooth. Small. Yellowed. Human. Still warm. She threw it, disgusted, but it didn't hit the ground. Something caught it. A shadow at the convent door. She turned. The shadow moved. It didn't walk. It slid, like something too old for legs. Back in Paris, she locked her doors. Threw holy water across her apartment. Didn't help. On the 5th night, she woke at 3:33 a.m. to the sound of humming. A church hymn. The kind they sang at funerals in the old Latin rite. It was coming from her closet. She grabbed a knife, opened the door. Inside was only her coat rack. But the coat moved. It turned. Hung there was a nun's habit. Her breath caught in her throat. Then the coat smiled. Elodie stared at the habit hanging in her closet. It wasn't hers. Black wool, hand-stitched. Yellowed lace at the collar, dotted with old wax stains and something else. Hadn't blinked, but the smile on it was still there. No mouth, no face, just the shape of a grin stretching across the front like a wet shadow. Something darker. She hadn't moved. She stepped back, and the closet door slammed shut. The lights flickered. Her phone buzzed. New message. It was a video. No sender. Just 1 minute and 33 seconds. Filmed in secret, maybe by one of the novices. The glass coffin filled the frame. She hesitated, then pressed play. It was footage of the convent chapel. Shaky, handheld. Sister Agnes was sitting upright, not lying down, not resting, sitting, and smiling. The camera zoomed in, and suddenly Agnes snapped her head toward the lens. Her mouth opened wide. She whispered something. Elodie played it over and over. Finally, she heard it. Do you want to know why I smile? Unclean. She took only the essentials, her laptop, clothes, and a journal she'd found hidden in the convent archives. She dropped the phone. It landed screen up, still playing the frozen image. Agnes was pointing, again, straight at her. Deranged. Sentences without punctuation. Prayers scrawled over, and one line repeated across several pages the next day. Elodie checked into a hotel across town. Her apartment felt unsafe. It was Sister Agnes's, written in beautiful, looping French. But as it went on, the entries became unhinged. Now I smile because he lives inside my mouth. He comes when we smile. Another. I smiled for penance, lying still, unable to move, surrounded by nuns, faceless, humming. The novices said her mouth was open, locked into a grin so wide it tore the skin. She shut the book. That night, the dreams worsened. She was back in the chapel. This time, she was inside the coffin. Sister Agnes stood above her, a rusted rosary in one hand, a scalpel in the other. "Say-ah," she whispered. The fog over the hills seemed thicker than before. Every one of them burned low. The wax puddled into red smears. The village of Marcelloni felt abandoned. No one on the streets. Even the dogs wouldn't look at her, then began slicing open Elodie's cheeks, carving a permanent smile. She woke screaming, blood on her pillow, to tiny cuts on either side of her lips, like the beginning of something. The next morning, she got a message from the convent. Sister Madeleine was dead, collapsed during prayer. Her tongue had been ripped out. No sign of struggle, no intruder, no fingerprints, just one thing left behind, a single white tooth on the chapel floor. Elodie knew she had to return. The train ride was silent. She entered the convent. The door was unlocked. Inside, no one. Candles flickered along the hallway. The chapel door creaked open as she approached. The coffin was shattered. Glass everywhere. The silk lining torn to ribbons. And Sister Agnes gone. Elodie stood frozen. Then, a breath on her neck. Not wind. Breath, warm, wet. Whispering. She turned. Nothing. But on the chapel wall, behind the altar, smeared in something brown, maybe blood, maybe not, was a message. She smiled. Now so will you? Suddenly, the organ pipes wheezed. A single note dot, then two. Then a hymn, slow, broken, like someone playing who didn't understand music anymore. Elodie turned and ran, but not before seeing it. In the last pew, just visible in the candlelight, sat Sister Agnes, eyes wide, head tilted, and smiling. But her mouth wasn't her own anymore. It stretched longer than a human jaw should stretch, like something else was inside her, something using her smile as a mask. Elodie fled the convent, back to Paris, but it followed. That night, she dreamed again. She was smiling, couldn't stop, even when her lips split, even when her jaw cracked open, even when the black fingers pulled themselves out of her throat. Hello, I'm here, and today we're going to be reading your scary story submissions. This week's theme is smiling in your sleep, and first up, we have Elodie couldn't remember the last time she slept without waking up bleeding. The cuts along her cheeks were deeper now. If you enjoyed this video, please consider dropping a like and a comment to support the channel. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an upload. They wouldn't close. When she looked in the mirror, she saw something wrong behind her eyes. something smiling back. She tried to warn the church, tried to report Sister Agnes's disappearance, but the Vatican never answered. The convent, abandoned. No one there, no records, no living sisters, like it never existed. Even the village had changed. When she searched for Marcelloni online, no map showed it. Just static, glitched pages, as if the place had been erased or pulled somewhere else. She wasn't the only one losing her grip. Her assistant quit after seeing her reflection in a window, not Elodie, but something wearing her face, smiling to wide. She screamed. She ran. She left behind a note. It's not you. Whatever it is, it's learning how to wear you. Elodie destroyed every mirror in her apartment, every reflective surface. But that night, she caught her own reflection in the darkened oven door, and it blinked when she didn't. The smiling kept spreading. Across town, stories surfaced. A man on the metro grinned at strangers until his jaw dislocated. A schoolgirl found smiling in her sleep, her mouth frozen open, all her teeth shattered from clenching. A priest who screamed mid-sermon, clawed at his own face, and shrieked. She smiles beneath the altar. Her teeth are not her own. Hospitals couldn't explain it. Psychiatrists called it hysteria. But Elodie knew. Agnes had escaped, and whatever was inside her wanted faces. One night, she heard it again, the voice. Not in a dream, not from her phone, but from inside her home, whispering from the kitchen. Elodie, smile, just a little wider. She grabbed her crucifix, crept toward the voice. The kitchen lights flickered. The air was thick, and there, sitting calmly at a table, was Sister Agnes, dressed in black, pale as ash, eyes glazed, and smiling. But it wasn't her. The thing wearing her moved wrong, like it had bones in the wrong places. Its hands were too long. Its teeth were layered, not one row, but two, maybe three. Elodie raised the cross. The creature laughed, a sound like dry leaves twisting. You still don't understand, it rasped. She didn't smile for holiness. It leaned forward. She smiled, because she was the gate. 100 whispers filled the air. The windows shattered. The lights exploded. And the voice, hundreds of voices, spoke as one. Open your mouth. Elodie, let him in. Something black spilled from Sister Agnes's grin. Not blood, not shadow. Something alive. It crawled across the ceiling. It moved without form, and it reached for her. Elodie screamed. She woke up in a hospital bed. A nurse stared at her with wide, terrified eyes. You were smiling in your sleep, she whispered. You wouldn't stop. Elodie touched her face. Her cheeks were bandaged. The cuts had torn deeper, but they hadn't stitched her mouth shut. They hadn't seen what was inside. Only she had. She asked the nurse for a mirror. The nurse hesitated, then handed her a small shard. Elodie stared into it, and behind her own eyes something moved and smiled. 3 weeks later, a tourist visited the old chapel ruins in Marcella. There was no convent anymore, just a field of broken stone and wild flowers. But in the overgrown center stood a glass coffin, cracked, empty, and carved into the wood beside it, she smiled for 70 years. Now it's your turn. Thank you so much for watching.